guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm gonna tell you how I became a vegan dietitian. So first, let me explain how you just become a dietitian. So first, you have to complete a bachelor's in nutrition, and it has to be a DPD program, which means a didactic program of dietetics, where basically you just have to complete a certain number of courses that are prerequisites for the dietetic internship. People don't realize how hard it is to actually get a degree in nutrition. I think a lot of people see it as an easier degree than like some of the more traditional sciences, but it's not. Especially to do a DPD program, you need to take anatomy, physiology, genetics, a lot of chemistry, and organic chemistry and biochemistry, which were the death of me. As of this year, it's required to have a master's degree to become a dietitian too. And then after that, you need to go through a 1 year or a little bit less than 1 year dietetic internship. And that's usually unpaid too, where you have to work at hospitals, clinics, food service operations like kitchens and stuff like that. And you're basically doing the work of a dietitian, but you're not getting paid for it. And then after that, you are qualified to take the RD exam, which is basically a board exam to become a dietitian. And that's also a pretty hard exam. And once you pass that, you're officially a dietitian. But for anyone who does want to be a dietitian, don't let that discourage you, because yes, it's going to be a challenging journey, but anything worth achieving is going to be hard. So just be prepared for it. And just know that once you have finished the journey, let me tell you from the other side of it, that it is so worth it. As a dietitian, we have the power to transform people's lives through food, and it's really an amazing thing. So my journey, basically I went from my bachelor's to my master's to my dietetic internship to my PhD program. I never took any breaks. So I did my bachelor's at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I graduated in 2020, and then I went straight to my master's at San Jose State in nutrition as well, graduated in 2022. Then I went to my dietetic internship at Cal Poly again, graduated in June of 2023, and then I took the RD exam in August of 2023. So I've been a dietitian for maybe 5 months or so. It hasn't really been that long. And then I immediately started my PhD program in September of 2023 at Loma Linda University. And maybe you've heard of it. It's a blue zone, and it's one of the most well-known programs for vegetarian nutrition. So how I became a vegan dietitian. I've been vegetarian my whole life, and my parents are, their parents are, my whole family is vegetarian. So the first real dietary change I ever made was going vegan in 2014. And that was probably the hardest but best decision I ever made. We followed a typical South Indian diet, so we relied a lot on dairy products like yogurt and cream and ghee and milk and all of that stuff. And so it was really tough to veganize our cultural recipes. Sure, there were a ton of recipes for vegan mac and cheese and burgers and shakes and things like that, but not a lot for our cultural recipes. So that was probably the hardest thing. And none of us had any nutrition knowledge, so we didn't know what supplements to take or how to balance our meals or anything like that. So I was pretty much forced to research food and nutrition, and that's kind of how my journey started. I realized that, hey, I actually love nutrition and healthy eating and learning about all of this stuff, but I never saw it as a career because I guess I always thought I would go into a more traditional career. I mean, anyone else, a child of immigrant parents here, you know, I thought I was gonna be a doctor or a scientist or something else. When I decided to pursue nutrition, I realized that, hey, I can use my life experiences to help other people. My goal was to help other people realize the benefits, the health benefits, the environmental benefits, and the ethical benefits that I had personally experienced from going vegan, or even from just following a plant-based diet all of my life. That's why I wanted to be a dietitian. And the second part to that is I wanted to help make that transition to a plant-based diet easier than it was for me and for my family. So moving on to my career path. For those of you who don't know, when you go through a dietetic internship, they expose you to a few different traditional roles of a dietitian. They expose you to the clinical side where you are working with hospital dietitians, the community side where you're working in clinics like food assistance programs and things like that, and the food service side where you're working in a kitchen. And I didn't feel like I fit into any of those traditional roles. As a dietetic intern, when I worked at a hospital, I was met with patients who were so sick that I couldn't just go in there and be like, have you considered a vegan diet? Because even if a vegan diet would have benefited them, they were so sick at that point that the priority was just to get them better and get them out of there. I couldn't really make any long-term behavior changes or even give them the education they needed to do that. And similarly at the food service level, there were so many rules and regulations when it came to changing the menu to maybe a more plant-based one that I really couldn't make any significant differences. So I feel like I was so restricted that the best way for me to make the kind of changes that I wanted was to branch out and start my own practice. If you're a nutrition student or an intern, maybe you get what I'm saying here, but so many of my preceptors would say you need at least 1 or 2 years of experience working in one of these more traditional jobs, especially working in the hospital, before you can branch out and start your own practice. But the way I see it, you're gonna learn these things along the way. Whether you start a practice now or later, you're gonna gain that knowledge along the way. Might as well start the practice right away instead of putting yourself through a job that you know is going to make you miserable, because life is too short for that, you know? If any of you are also interested in plant-based nutrition, you may be wondering if you need to apply to a specialized plant-based nutrition program. And for me, I didn't, and I don't think it's necessary. The plant-based nutrition programs out there are mostly through private universities like Loma Linda University, Andrews University. I know Bastyr has a plant-based nutrition focus too, and those are expensive. I did most of my education at California state schools, and yeah, public education is not going to be as specialized as you would have liked, but you still get a really good nutrition education, and then you can build on that through your own research, through attending webinars and taking supplementary courses and things like that online. But you don't need to fork over a ton of money in order to become a plant-based dietitian. Another question I get from my longtime vegan and vegetarian friends is, do you have to cook with meat? And the answer is yes, unless you're in one of those plant-based nutrition programs. In your food science and food service classes, you will have to cook with meat. And they just want to teach you how to cook with meat and make sure that it meets the food safety recommendations. They do ask you food safety and food handling and nutritional questions about meat on the RD exam. So it's important to know those things, especially because, as much as I hate to admit it, most of the world is non-vegetarian. Most of the world eats meat. So it's important that we know the nutritional composition of meat, because most of our patients are going to be eating that. I will say, as a dietetic intern, I had more freedom to say no to some of those meat handling and prep activities. Because as a dietetic intern, you're like a volunteer, you're not really an employee, so you're not required to do everything that they tell you to do at your rotation sites. So as a food service intern, I was given jobs like cutting the fruits and vegetables and opening jars and cans of tomatoes and washing dishes and stuff instead of having to handle the meat and things like that. So I would recommend advocating for yourself so you're given the non-meat related tasks if you are vegan or vegetarian. One thing that I was really worried about when I decided to become a dietitian was, do I have to recommend animal products? And the answer is not usually. I mean, we know that most Americans eat too few fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans and nuts and seeds. So you're actually recommending that they increase their intake of those plant-based foods and decrease their intake of meat and high-fat dairy products, because those are the foods that people normally eat too much of, and we want to reduce that. But I will say there are certain times where you will have to recommend meat and dairy. For example, if you have a cancer patient who's not able to stomach anything besides ice cream and milkshakes, then you recommend the ice cream and milkshakes, because the most important thing is that they eat something, right? But for most healthy individuals, you do want to recommend more plant-based foods and fewer animal proteins. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe, check out my latest video right there, and comment below on what you want to see next. I'm going to be posting a lot more videos like this. So yeah, that's it. Bye!